Our top stories tonight. President Jacob Zuma calls on ANC supporters to help maintain the party's grip on Gauteng at its Provincial Manifesto launch. The US Embassy in Pretoria has warned that terrorist groups are targeting South Africa. This is eNews Direct Weekend Edition. Good evening.
You can comment on any of our stories by following us on Facebook and Twitter at eNews Direct.
Or you can check our content on our website, eNCA.com/direct. President Jacob Zuma says Gauteng is very important to the governing party. He's emphasized that the ANC cannot lose its grip on the strategically important economic hub. He was addressing supporters during the party's Provincial Manifesto launch in Gauteng. There was a solid turnout of ANC supporters at the FNB Stadium in Soweto. Party officials reported that over 85,000 supporters filed into the almost 95,000-seater stadium. This is in stark contrast to the party's National Manifesto launch in April at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium in Port Elizabeth, where only 30,000 people attended.
Gauteng must remain the home of the ANC. Let me tell you, comrades, as part of the emphasis of this point, that Gauteng is the home of the ANC. The African National Congress was formed in Mangaung, but throughout his life, the headquarters of the ANC are in Gauteng. In no way can we have any other party being in charge in Gauteng except the ANC. You therefore have a very serious responsibility to defend and maintain the home of this mighty organization. Let me therefore also state clearly from the onset, without any ambiguity, the ANC must win the 2016 local government elections convincingly all over the country, and also in particular this province of Gauteng.
Well, the president also told ANC supporters that the party must set the example and not mirror the behavior of its critics. He criticized opposition parties, describing them as violent thugs.
The ANC is the leader of society and cannot behave the same way as its detractors. It has to show the example how to live in a democratic, peaceful, harmonious society. There are parties that are known for their violent behavior and thuggery. Our members must not stoop to their level. The ANC is a peaceful organization, and members must be disciplined at all times.
In other news, the US Embassy has warned its South African-based citizens that terrorist groups are planning to target them. A US government statement says it's received information that militant groups intend to carry out attacks in places where its citizens congregate in the country. Such areas may include upmarket shopping centres in Johannesburg and Cape Town. The US Embassy in Pretoria says it's cooperating with local authorities. There are fears that IS militants could carry out terror attacks around the globe during the month of Ramadan. The city of Ekurhuleni wants to make it easier for people to locate the graves of their loved ones from anywhere in the world. The city has enlisted new technology to help prevent gravesite booking irregularities and maladministration.
Many families know the frustration of trying to locate the final resting place of a loved one. With close to 1 million people buried in its 63 cemeteries, the city of Ekurhuleni wants to make this process less painful and less time-consuming for families.
We've got graves that go as far as 1800s. So all those graves are manually recorded. So it has been impossible for us to keep all those books. So what happens is within 48 hours before the funeral, when people come, they book on the system, and after that 48 hours, no matter how many years down the line, the family is able to go into the system and check for those records.
On average, 500 burials take place in Ekurhuleni each weekend. There are over 15,000 funerals annually in the municipality. The Smartman cemetery management system will make it easier for cemetery officials to allocate graves while avoiding duplication.
From anywhere in Ekurhuleni, management is able to check those graves, how many funerals are going to take place on a weekend at any given cemetery. The manager is able to check on those graves. The manager is able to check on any applications that have taken place for any day. Then they are able to see what is currently happening at the cemeteries without even having to go out physically.
The cemetery management software has already been piloted in 10 of the city's cemeteries. It's currently being updated to include the remaining 53.
Looking at the fading of the books, the corruption that takes place, the fires that might take place that we don't know, the theft that can take place at the cemeteries. So we have seen that there's a great need that we can have an electronic system.
In the meantime, city officials are busy with the painstaking process of transferring thousands of names from the fading pages of its cemetery records into the system. The city of Ekurhuleni is spending 18 months perfecting the system, and if all goes well, it hopes to have it ready for public use by September 2017. Sikelelwa Mdingi, Boksburg.
More than 500 South African National Defence Force soldiers placed on special leave in 2009 have been recalled. That's after they embarked on an illegal strike to demand better pay. But all these years later, some soldiers used their time off constructively.
7 years ago, these soldiers were placed on paid special leave. But instead of sitting back, they sought to make a name for themselves.
As I am talking to you now, I obtained a BSc degree in social work in 2015. And I am still pursuing my studies with the Thabo Mbeki African Institution doing gender studies and feminism.
I enrolled for my LLB towards 2000. Yeah. Look, I could not finish it in time. Sometimes I did not have the money to register. Sometimes I registered, I did not have the money to pay the fees. Then I'll have to go to Burundi. I went to Burundi 2003, 2004, 2005 as a VIP protector.
Others tried their hand at becoming entrepreneurs.
I had this thing of starting a business, which didn't go well.
But now BSc graduate Mhlaku says his special leave was no walk in the park.
Our contracts are renewed every 5 years since I am not a permanent member. But then they started renewing it every year and how to write statements and do fitness tests while staying at home.
The soldiers say they're willing to go back to work and are keen to use their newly acquired skills in the military.
On to world news now, and tributes are pouring in for boxing icon Muhammad Ali following his death last night at the age of 74. Ali had been admitted to an Arizona hospital the day before for a respiratory problem. The three-time heavyweight champion had become increasingly frail since being diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in 1984 when he was 42. Ali is remembered for a number of classic fights, including the Rumble in the Jungle in Kinshasa in 1974 when he outwitted George Foreman to regain his title. In his tribute, South Africa's Sports Minister Fikile Mbalula said Ali was one of a kind.
He has changed the sport of boxing forever and ever. Everybody who came after him is a point of reference. He's definitely a global icon. And for one thing, we draw solace from as humanity is that is one individual who have graced, our shores and been everywhere, and who have changed the sport of boxing and sport in particular, and make it something that got to be loved by people. But he was not shy to stand for human rights and what he believed in. He was a total all-rounder. There will never be somebody like him. Somebody like him is yet to be born.
And in other news, the levels of the River Seine in Paris have started dropping slightly after reaching a 34-year high yesterday. The river level rose to 6.1 meters above its normal height overnight. Forecasters had warned it could reach as high as 6.5 meters above its normal level. Floodwaters have forced thousands of people to evacuate their homes, and parts of the metro system and major landmarks had to be closed. The famous Louvre and Orsay museums were also shut, while staff moved art in basement storage to safety. Well, for these stories and more, go to eNCA.com/direct or follow us on Twitter and Facebook at eNews Direct. After the break, larger-than-life sea creatures appear on land with a strong message. They're all created from billions of kilograms of trash washed up by the ocean. Plastic pollution has been called the ocean's deadliest predator, and to raise awareness about the danger it poses for all the world's waterways, a US group has mounted a unique exhibition. They converted more than 140 billion kilograms of trash collected from the Pacific coastline into larger-than-life works of art.
All kinds of wonderful sea creatures feature in the exhibit at Washington's Smithsonian National Zoo. There's even a whale skeleton made up entirely of plastic bottles, and it's proving an effective way to raise awareness.
We don't use anything except the garbage that comes off of beaches, and we're picking up tons and tons of it all the time.
Potsy and her Washed Ashore organization spent countless hours collecting washed up rubbish on the Oregon shoreline, sorting and washing thousands of plastic items to create the plastic sculptures. Everything from flip-flops and bottle tops to lighters.
There was a million lighters and all of these different things that were really surprising to find that were washed up on the ocean.
And judging by the response, this exhibition is certainly bringing its message across.
So you can't put trash in the ocean because it'll hurt animals.
Well, after the break, Louis has your weather forecast.
Good evening and welcome to the Weather Centre. A quick check of tomorrow's weather conditions, and it's going to be a cloudy day for some parts in the east. We could even have a bit of light rain, especially in the morning over parts of KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape. It's also going to be cooler due to the thicker cloud that's going to move in over the Lowveld and the adjacent escarpment, while the central and western parts of the country are going to be mostly clear, and it's going to be a warmer day near the western coastline. A quick look at your detailed forecast, and we are expecting KZN to be quite cloudy and cold, especially for the interior. Light rain possible for the coastline at times as well as the southern interior, but that will be quite fleeting. We aren't expecting too much rainfall out of that. Similar conditions for the eastern parts of the Eastern Cape. Much of this province will be cloudy, especially in the morning. Temperatures really aren't going to be recovering too much. For the Western Cape, on the other hand, it's going to be a sunny Sunday. The province is still eagerly awaiting the start of some significant winter rainfall, but for the meantime, you might as well enjoy the sunshine. Taking a look at the Northern Cape, and it's going to be mostly clear, a bit of cirrus cloud passing overhead, cold for Sutherland, but Uppington in the north gets to a very warm 26 degrees. It remains cool for the Free State, 20 degrees as a high for Bloemfontein, while it will be colder towards the eastern parts where we will see a bit more cloud. In the northwest, we'll also see cirrus moving overhead. No rain for this province. 22 degrees as a maximum for Mahikeng as well as Rustenburg. Into Limpopo, where there'll be light morning rain along the escarpment, otherwise cloudy to partly cloudy in the province. And it will also be a cooler day for Mpumalanga. Quite a bit of cloud, especially over the eastern parts. And it's going to be cold for Emakazeni, 16 degrees as a maximum. Heading into Gauteng, we will see a bit of increased cloud cover, helping to keep things slightly cooler than it was today, but it's still going to be a mild afternoon. Let's look ahead to your Monday's weather conditions, and it's going to be dry all across South Africa. Temperatures rising over the eastern parts, although Polokwane will be cool at 19 degrees. And by Tuesday, Bergwinds are going to be pushing temperatures up over the far southern parts. Cape Town and George both get to 28 degrees.
Well, here's a recap of your top stories now before we say goodnight. President Jacob Zuma calls on ANC supporters to help maintain the party's grip on Gauteng at its Provincial Manifesto launch. Party officials reported that over 85,000 supporters filed into the almost 95,000-seater FNB Stadium in Soweto, in contrast to the turnout of only 30,000 at the party's National Manifesto launch in April at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium in Port Elizabeth. The US Embassy in Pretoria has warned that terrorist groups are targeting South Africa. There are fears that IS militants could carry out terror attacks around the globe during the month of Ramadan. Well, that's a wrap from the eNews Direct team.